So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this final session on Plotinus's philosophy here at the Department of Philosophy of the University of Regensburg. We are holding this final session exceptionally in collaboration with the Andújar International Institute for German Culture, which is my own institute here in Andújar, but this is not an open session. You can access to this session only as a member of the University of Regensburg, and this is the case with all of you. I'm very happy to introduce to you today today's speakers. He is Oleh Utkin, a distinguished specialist in Plotinus's philosophy, as well as in the so-called mysticism of Meister Eckhart. He is currently completing his PhD here at the University of Regensburg under my supervision, focusing specifically on the relationship between these two crucial figures in the history of philosophy, Plotinus and Meister Eckhart. Let me share some information with you about Mr. Utkin before handing over the floor to him. He was born in Odessa, Ukraine, where he attended both primary and secondary school. After completing secondary school, he moved to Israel, when he lived for some time and first developed an interest in philosophy. In 2012, he began his philosophy studies at Odessa National University, where he obtained a master in philosophy with honors, I have to emphasize this, in 2018. After completing his master's degree, he became a postgraduate student in the Department of Philosophy at the same university, while simultaneously teaching philosophy at the Department of General Scientific, Social, and Behavioral Disciplines at the MAUP, Odessa Institute in Odessa, of course. During this time, he also co-organized the educational project Open Philosophy School based at the Department of Philosophy at Odessa National University. Besides, he's the author of lectured courses on Neoplatonic philosophy, mysticism, and genealogy. Another aspect I find particularly fascinating is that Oleh Utkin is also the author of a poetry collection in Russian, published in Moscow in 2011. Oleh can speak both Russian and Ukrainian languages, of course, native speaking. Today, Mr. Utkin is going to give his speech in English, but let me also mention this point, which I consider to be of particular significance. He could just as well have done it in German, as he speaks the language fluently, both in writing and speaking. He also has a high level of proficiency in classical languages that are crucial, I think, for his studies on Plotinus and Meister Eckhart. Not only ancient Greek, which he learned during his time in Odessa, and I can attest he can really very well ancient Greek. This is not exaggerating. We are having classes together, reading Plotinus together, and I learned a lot from him. As not only ancient Greek, which he learned during his time in Odessa, but also Latin and Middle High German language, which he has been studying at the Mace Institute. This is my institute here in Andújar, together, by the way, with Mr. Boos and Mr. Ganel for the last 2.5 years. No? So, Oleh, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for being here with us today. We look forward to your talk, the title of which is Plotinus on Purification. So, I hand over to you. Very good.
Yes, thank you very much, dear Professor Quero-Sánchez, for your kind introduction, as well as for your invitation. To be honest, I'm very happy to be here today and speak about a topic I have been working on for quite some time a philosophy of Plotinus, an author I deeply appreciate. So in this short speech, I am going to give a brief overview on Plotinus's view on virtue. But first, it makes sense to spend a few minutes introducing his life and works. With this late antique philosopher, we are confronted with a small paradox. On the one hand, we possess a biography written by his student Porphyry, as well as, more importantly, all his writings, so-called Enneads, meaning nines in ancient Greek. That is collection which comprised 9 treatises. On the other hand, we know very little about Plotinus himself. And this is a crucial point. According to Porphyry, Plotinus didn't wish to reveal his origin and was in fact ashamed of being in a body at all. When his disciples wanted to make a sculpture of him, he declined their request and compared such a portrait to an image of an image, or as he puts in Greek, eidolou eidolon. This attitude reflects his philosophy perfectly, a philosophy of simplicity and the path of escape from this world toward true reality. Yes, from this world toward reality itself. Why was Plotinus ashamed of being in a body? Why did he speak about the image of an image? Today, someone might suggest that he had psychological issues or something along these lines. In fact, there are some scholarly articles that explore this kind of perspective. One of them, written by a well-known researcher in this field, suggests that Plotinus may have suffered from epilepsy. Nevertheless, this kind of interpretations don't really explain Plotinus's philosophical outlook. If we take a closer look at his thought, we will see that things are more puzzling and subtle than they first appear. What I'd like to do in what follows is offer a brief journey through Plotinus's philosophical position. So, the structure of reality, as outlined in the Enneads, follows 3 hierarchical levels. At the top is what Plotinus and other Platonic philosophers call the One. This is absolute itself, beyond all multiplicity, beyond all things, definitions, and imagination. It is absolutely self-sufficient and simple. If you are familiar with Plato's Parmenides, the One in Plotinus corresponds to the first hypothesis in that dialogue. We cannot even say that it exists, nor can we say that it doesn't exist. Our language seems almost incapable of expressing anything about it. And this is not only because of the limitation of language itself, but more importantly, because of the transcendent nature of the One. Moreover, we cannot truly think the One because thinking implies a subject-object relationship. However, the One as absolute unity and simplicity allows no such duality. So if you try to think about the One, you are not really thinking of the true One, but of something different from it, something like a simulacrum, to use a term from Badiou's philosophy. The One, in its superabundance, is the source of all other levels of reality that emanate from it. It is goodness itself, the origin of everything that exists. The second level is the nous, or intellect. Personally, I don't like translating nous as intellect, which is the standard rendering in the English tradition of Plotinus scholarship. In my view, there is no fully adequate English equivalent of nous, so we will simply use the Greek term. Nous, what does this mean? It is the first true being. It exists simultaneously as both unity and plurality. It is the One that exists, we can say it. In this sense, it corresponds to the second hypothesis in Plato's Parmenides. The third level is the soul, in Greek psyche. We can speak about the soul in 2 distinct senses. First, as the anima mundi, that is the universal soul, and second, as the individual soul. It seems that in the sense of Plotinus' philosophy, the universal soul is the source of the individual soul. So that there is in fact only one soul with difference between individuals arising from varying conditions. What's important to mention here is that the soul in the Neoplatonic sense doesn't correspond directly to its Christian counterpart. While there are many parallels between Christianity and Neoplatonic philosophy, it is crucial to remember that they belong to different traditions. If we want to understand Neoplatonism accurately, we must avoid conflating the two. The lowest level of reality is matter. However, the nature of matter is quite tricky. It doesn't mean corporeality, particular things, bodies, or anything like that. Matter, for Plotinus, is like itself, absolute deficiency. We cannot even imagine it matter, because our mind grasps objects through the shaping of form, and matter itself has no form at all. According to Plotinus, matter is the source of evil. As the lowest level of reality, it possesses only the barest degree of existence compared to the other levels. I try to explain this with the following example. Imagine the sun shining in the darkness of space. The closer you are to the sun, the brighter it appears. Now, there is a point far from the sun where the light is no longer reached. There almost no light exists. We could describe this darkness as a deficiency of light. In the same way, matter is a deficiency of everything, because the source of all things is infinitely far away. At this point, it is reasonable to ask about the role of the human being in this vision of the universe. One of the richest sources for understanding Plotinus' anthropology is the first Aeneid. There he describes the human being as a mixture of body and soul. Our soul seems to consist of two parts, a higher part and a lower one, respectively. The higher part descends from the higher reality, from above, and through it we are able to return to the source of all things. The lower part, on the other hand, reacts to matter and pulls us downward, which, by the way, is an allusion to Plato's Phaedrus. Through our reactions, passions, and affections, we remain in contact with the sense-perceptible universe. We are like something priceless lying in the mind, becoming soiled and mistakenly identify ourselves with the matter. I could say that our affection are properties of matter, but according to Plotinus, matter has no properties at all. In fact, the problem lies in our embodied state. The soul intertwines with the body. So the most important thing we can do is to separate the soul from the body. Plotinus speaks often of this homoios apatosomatos, separation from the body. Pierre Hadot, one of the most influential French scholars of the Platonic and Neoplatonic traditions, notes that this separation from the body during one's lifetime is the highest goal of all forms of Platonism. In Plotinus' case, this idea may be even more relevant than in other versions of Platonism. Through the separation, we return to our true self. I would like to illustrate this idea with the following example. One of the meanings and most important meanings of the Greek word "hule" is matter. Other meanings include force, wooden fuel, and material. Now, it can also mean sediment, specifically the sediment that settles at the bottom of something, such as the ocean. We are living at the bottom of reality. The higher we rise, the more clearly, simply, brightly, and truly being will reveal itself. Our true nature is not the sediment composed of body and soul. Our true nature is from the surface of the ocean of being. Plotinus says that the essential is unmixed. Just try to reflect on that. The essential is unmixed. The heart of something cannot be something else. It cannot be something that doesn't belong to its true nature. Now, if our true nature doesn't belong to the body, then what are bodies? This brings us to another important point. The nature of bodies is evil insofar as they participate in matter. The more you are body, the more you are evil. However, this doesn't necessarily mean evil in a strict moral sense. In this vision of the universe, evil is simply the farthest point from the light of the good. Think again of the sunlight analogy. The more we identify ourselves with our body, the farther we are from the good. The soul is not evil in itself. In fact, the soul in its pure state is simply the unmixed soul, and that is our goal, purification, or catharsis in ancient Greek. To summarize what I have already said, our soul is mixed with the body and identifies itself with it. Because of this, it falls away from true reality. We need to separate ourselves from the body. We need to purify ourselves from the matter of matter. At this point, the question of virtues arises. It should already be clear that the most important virtue is purification. I will say it is the only virtue that can truly lead us to ultimate reality. In his treatise on virtue, Plotinus writes that other virtues may help us achieve certain purposes, but he seems largely uninterested in them. Purification, or catharsis, is a different matter. I will now discuss this point in more detail. At the beginning of treatise 1.2 on virtues, Plotinus writes, "Bulletai de he psyche fuge in takaka." The soul wants to escape from evil. And how is this to be done? As so often, Plotinus finds answer in his interpretation of Plato's text, in this case from Theaetetus, being made like God, homoitenai toi. From such a beginning, it becomes clear that the question of virtue is not only partly tied to Platonic interpretation, but more importantly, to Plotinus's concept of deification. In this framework, virtues are the meanings of attaining godlikeness. But not all virtues are equal. According to the Enneads, there are two kinds of virtues, civic or political virtues, and the higher virtue, the purification of the soul. In fact, only purification, catharsis, can lead us to a godlike state. Political or civic virtues might help us achieve certain intermediate goals, but they are ultimately insufficient. Furthermore, in the third Ennead, in the treatise on Providence, part 1, Plotinus compares human life to an actor's role in a play and sees all social concert, including wars and killings, are mere children's games. All of it takes place in the stage of the material world, and our body is just a costume. Plotinus seems to have little interest in such matters. Since ultimate reality lies beyond the material realm, we too must escape from the stage of matter and everything associated with it. In other words, to ascend to what is beyond everything, we ourselves must go beyond everything. Otherwise, we will continue to live merely as bodies, not as souls. Plotinus says that the part of the soul is always directed toward higher reality. Figuratively speaking, we must return to our origin, the origin of the all. The process of purification is a turning toward nous, a deep immersion in the Noetic ocean. It is not about acquiring something new, but about cleansing ourselves from matter's multiplicity. The perfect soul, therefore, is the one that continually turns to the intellect and remains pure by turning away from matter. I can compare it to silence. If one wants to be in silence, one doesn't need to create new sound. Silence is a state of the absence of sound, a simplicity that arises naturally when all noise is removed. In fact, you cannot create silence. You can only remove all sounds. Our true nature is unmixed. Our soul is simple and pure, but we identify ourselves with the cacophony of multiplicity. It is one of the central threads of Plotinus' philosophy. The one is absolutely simple, and we must become absolutely simple as well. Catharsis, therefore, is the process of unmixing. In Ennead 1.2, Plotinus writes, I quote, "Since the soul is evil, when it thoroughly mixes with body and shares its experiences and has all the same opinions, it will be good and possess virtue when it no longer has the same opinions, but acts on its own. This is intelligence and wisdom, and doesn't share the body's experiences. This is the self-control. And it's not afraid of departing from the body. This is courage. And it's ruled by reason and intellect without opposition, and this is justice." Unquote. As you can probably see from this quotation, virtues such as intelligence, in ancient Greek noein, wisdom pronein, self-control sophronein, courage andrisestai, and justice dikaiosyune are not understood in the ordinary sense, but in terms of Plotinus' view of the nature of the soul. So how exactly can the soul be separated from the body? Plotinus doesn't provide a strict method, but he gives a guiding idea. Phronesis and theoria onus echid, that is to say in English, wisdom in the contemplation of what the intellect contains. I will try to illustrate this with the following example. The rectangular shape of a book is a description related to matter. I perceive this rectangular shape in the material world, but the idea of shapeness belongs to the intelligible realm. So I should not think about the rectangular shape of this particular book. Rather, I should contemplate shapeness itself, not the shape of something, but the form as such. Otherwise, I remain attached to matter, to this particularity. To summarize the whole speech, according to Plotinus' teaching, the most important virtue is purification, the purification from the impurity of matter. Moreover, it is the only virtue that truly enables us to return to our true self. Through the separation from the body and detachment from all things that belong to material realm, we rediscover the essential and mixed part of our being. The soul as it is in its purity, directed towards the intellect and ultimately towards the one. In conclusion, Plotinus' philosophy offers us a powerful vision of the human soul, and its place within the grand hierarchy of being. At the heart of this vision lies the idea that the soul, in its true nature, is simple, unmixed, and divine, yet it has become entangled with matter, identified with the body, and forgotten its origin. The task before us, then, is of purification, not merely moral and social, but metaphysical, a return to the source, a turning away from multiplicity, from the noise and confusion of the sensible world towards the silence and unity of the intelligible. This virtue of purification or catharsis is not just one virtue among many. It is the very path of the soul's ascent. It is through purification that the soul withdraws from illusion and rediscovers its essence. And only in this return, in this unmixing, does the soul become truly itself and prepared to behold the One, the source of all being. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Oleh. Thank you very much for your really interesting speech and also for being here today, having accepted our invitation. It has been a very interesting speech on the relationship between Plotinus's understanding of virtue and purification. Purification as an ethical, existential concept, but also as an ontological one. Maybe we can speak a little more about this now. Well, are there any questions for Mr. Utkin? Do you want to ask anything, whatever you like to? Mr. Garner.
Yes, I have a question. Would you agree that the concept of the one, so the Tohen in Plotinus's philosophy, is ultimately a purely negative concept? So it is not possible to say anything positive about it or to ascribe any positive characteristics to it, but that it is only negative in the sense that you can only say what it is not.
More than agree. Thank you for your question. First of all, yes, I'm agree. We cannot say positive, but I think we cannot, if we will speak in negative sense about the one, we cannot speak, we don't speak about the truly one. I already mentioned it. So I think in both way, when I can say it exists or it doesn't exist, it's both equal in this meaning, this both utterance not about the one itself. I think so.
Okay, thank you very much for both the question and the response. Is there any further questions? Mr. Bose?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your talk. I found it very enlightening, and I found it also very interesting that you almost started with the fact that there are some speculations about the psychological issues of Plotinus, and I think that even some scientific branches, some voices would even call metaphysics itself a kind of mental illness. And what is your general position about this? Would you think that the striving for unity and total oneness in some fact is a kind of pathological activity? So an activity which isn't in search for a truth, but in some kind search for a wholeness, which is just not a fact? Or do you think that traditions like Neoplatonism are really striving an essence which science in the general sense doesn't really fetch in some way?
I'm not sure that I understand your question. I mean, can you repeat, please, in short, your question? Because, yeah, can you repeat, please?
So maybe in short, would you think that there are really good arguments against this position that all this philosophy of unity and oneness is just a psychological phenomenon?
No, it's. I think it's a distinct conversation between distinct science. So if psychologists speak about Neoplatonics, probably it's a conversation in different languages at all. First of all, so no, I think Neoplatonics was in the Nähe von Freiheit, or not Freiheit, but they spoke about the true, but psychologists normally speak about a concept, and Neoplatonic tried to overcome concept and try to overcome language to achieve the truth, and this is the most important difference between science, I think, and such kind of tradition as a Neoplatonism or mysticism and something like that.
So
I wanted to say, as I know, Mr. Boss, I know that you are particularly interested in the relationship between philosophy and psychology, no? While Neoplatonism is realized, in a sense, trying to avoid any kind of relationship between psychology in the sense we understand this word and philosophy. But you wanted to ask something else, Sebastian?
maybe just one further question. So would you say that Plotinus maybe would think of modern psychology, I'm quoting, as a kind of children's game, so that maybe the virtue of the purification of the soul is maybe also some kind of game, but a higher game. So that purification is not something which is a burden or which just doesn't feel good, but you have to do, but is really something which can make some fun, maybe. And
Yes, probably on the one hand, we can think about this purification as a role in the stage of matter. But yes, probably is the most important role because we can at least we can go away from the stage through this kind of play.
Okay. Is there any further questions someone like to ask to Mr. Utkin? If not, so I'd like myself, also I'd like to raise a question myself. A question regarding a topic which is crucial for you and me, also for both you and me, which is the relationship between Plotinus's Meister Eckart's thought or philosophy, if you like, which, as far as I know, at least, but you're going to tell me more, is not a historical one, isn't it? I mean, Eckhart wasn't familiar with Plotinus's Enneads, as far as I know. Can you tell us something about this aspect, which, as I understand, constitutes the main topic of your PhD?
It's a really profound question indeed. We can speak about it a lot. So on the one hand, you're absolutely right, and Meister Eckhart wasn't familiar with Enneads directly. I mean, at least we have no evidence about it. On the other hand, there indirect influence on Meister Eckhart through Latin and Neoplatonism that Meister Eckhart was familiar with. However, I think the most interesting parallels between these both thinkers in their philosophical and, so to speak, metaphysical position. They both tend to describe this ascending to divine through negation, more precisely through self-negation. So they both speak about deification via negation. And it's a main point of my research. And I hope to share more about it in my forthcoming writings.
So it is this kind of theologia negativa, which plays an important role in both Plotinus and Meister Eckhart, and I have to say also in Dionysius the Areopagite, no? Who was a source for Meister Eckhart, no doubt. He had read him a lot, and he quotes from his works a lot too. Well, I would then say thank you very much, Oleh, for your nice speech. Thank you very much, all of you, for the just being there. I was very happy to see you all there, and I'm very happy to, and I'm very thankful, grateful for your questions, Sebastian and Roman. We will meet surely next week. Have a nice day. I'm going to stop the recording now.